Most people have happy thoughts when they remember their grandmother, but I don't. Most people have some nice tangible item to remind them of their grandmothers. I don't. The only tangible thing I have is a piece of paper. I obtained this piece of paper with the help of Link Up. This organisation was set up by Aboriginal people to help reunite those separated from their families due to government policies. This document showed me details about my grandmother, her family and where she was born. It is very important because it is the only tangible connection I have to her. My grandmother's name was Ada, and it took me several more years to piece together her story. I found out that her mother died when she was just 1 year old, and she was brought up by her grandmother, Julia. I discovered that she spent her early years growing up in several places around Yass. I imagined that she would have been happy living with Julia and her extended family. I also imagined that she spent many nights around the campfire listening to the Dreamtime stories handed down by the elders. I imagined she had freedom. Freedom, that is, until she was 8 years old. Then she was stolen, snatched from her family, together with 9 of her cousins. She was taken to Cootamundra Girls Home, where she and the others were trained to be white, so they could be domestic servants for white families. Although Ada was less than 100 kilometres away, her family were forbidden to visit. To stop the children asking for their parents, many were bluntly told they had died. The policy was to separate them from their families forever. The idea was, if they were raised by whites, they would learn to be ashamed of their colour, race and culture. Ada was in Cootamundra Home for 5 years. Whilst there she was taught to read and write, to clean, cook and sew. Life in the home was very cruel for these young homesick girls. There are numerous accounts of the girls being locked up for punishment in what was the old morgue, from the time when the home was the district's first hospital. When Ada was only 13, she was sent out into a completely different and unknown world. She was put on a train for the long journey to Sydney. I can imagine Ada would have been filled with fear and trepidation. Once in Sydney, she was taken to a mansion in Kirribilli to be a house servant for Mr. and Mrs. Courtney. Her weekly wage was supposed to be 1 shilling and 6pence. However, 1 shilling was put away into a trust fund and she was paid only 6pence for a week's work. Many girls receive no wages at all. To this day, the girls have never received the wages that were put into the trust fund. Ada was meant to be in service until she was 21. She must have been a brave little girl because she eventually ran away. However, she was soon captured and taken back to Cootamundra. Over the next 3 years she worked as a servant for wealthy families in Moore Park and Vaucluse. When she was 16, Ada ran away for the last time. After she was captured, a magistrate declared her uncontrollable. This time she was not returned to Cootamundra, but was locked away behind the steel gates of Parramatta Girls Home. Life there was worse than at Cootamundra. Stories about sexual abuse by the male guards are numerous. When she was 19, she married George, a white man 33 years older. I can only hope that Ada felt safe and secure with this older white man, because she had 7 children in the space of 9 years. 2 children died when they were babies. When the youngest child was less than 1 year old, George was found dead in the tent the family had been living in. It was now 1932 and the country was in the middle of the Great Depression. Ada had no choice but to surrender her 4 boys to a church home. She kept her baby girl and sought refuge in Redfern, which was now becoming an Aboriginal community. Ada died when I was 11 years old. She was 54. I admire her guts and determination to fight the system. I'm sorry for the childhood she lost. I'm sorry for her pain and suffering. Dear Ada, I wish you had been here when our Prime Minister said sorry. I wish we could have shared the joy and the tears together. This part of our history should never be forgotten. To you and all the other stolen kids, I am very sorry.